The South Carolina Gamecocks are your national champions. Live from Cleveland, I'm Howard Megdal here to take you through all we learned from team coverage, what it means for the Gamecocks, what Iowa and Caitlin Clark did and didn't do, and what is ahead for both programs and women's basketball as a whole. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I just had the most remarkable experience of my professional life covering the 2024 NCAA tournament in women's basketball at a moment we saw the world come to us, what we have been saying and feeling for a very long time. South Carolina, your champions. Of course, we do this every day. Sign up by joining us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. You subscribe. That's the word I'm looking for. Been a long tournament, friends. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And of course, it is not just me. It is the staff at thenexthoops.com. Over at The Next, we had 198 reported pieces about women's basketball in the month of March alone. We had 12 on Saturday alone talking about this incredible sport. $9 a month, $72 a year. Join us at thenexthoops.com. So in segment one, we're going to talk about everything South Carolina. It's going to be an opportunity to crown a champion and really come to understand why this is a dynasty, unlike one we have seen in a very long time, and if you adjust for a degree of difficulty, maybe ever. Segment two, we're going to talk about, who was it? Oh, right, Caitlin Clark, the Iowa guard who had a career for the ages. Where does she rate in history? What does she mean for the sport? What does she mean to America's children? We're going to cover all of that in segment two. And finally, in segment three, we're going to talk about what this means for the programs of South Carolina, for Iowa, and for the game that we all love. I am more than a little emotional seeing everything come together for this sport, that the coverage of it gets me out of bed every day to make sure that people understand the stories here, to see America drink deeply from the deliciousness of women's basketball is something that means a great deal. And we must start by talking about the South Carolina Gamecocks and what Dawn Staley has done over the past 3 seasons. I just want to put in perspective a championship in 21-22 at 35-2, a Final Four berth, entered it undefeated, finished 36-1 with that semifinal loss to Iowa, followed it up despite losing Aaliyah Boston and a host of others to the WNBA with a season in which, by any measure, they were even better, and 38-0 and national champions, and without a weakness on the team. I had the chance to talk to Lisa Bluter after it was over, talked to Caitlin Clark. Basically, they both threw their arms up in the air and said, what more can you do? What more can you do? Iowa presented a tremendous challenge. Bottom line, South Carolina was unbeatable. They are unbeatable on the interior with people like Camila Cardozo, who's going to go to the WNBA and have a fine career. People like, I don't want to miss anyone. Ashlyn Watkins, who's just a sophomore, who was 10th in the nation in block percentage. Tessa Johnson had 19 points. She is a freshman. Chloe Titz had 11 and 10 off the bench today. Everyone contributed. Malaysia Fulwiley is going to be such a monster in this game. Again, just a freshman. Everyone contributed. Raven Johnson was tasked a year ago by Aaliyah Boston that very night. And I've written about this over at the 9 newsletter. This is your team now, is what Aaliyah Boston said to Raven Johnson. And Raven Johnson went out there here in 23-24, became a threat from 3. There's no waving off when Raven Johnson has the ball from beyond the arc now, and took control of this team as well. A true team effort. Other than Cardozo, every major contributor is coming back, and South Carolina, with the possible exception of USC, has the best incoming freshman class for 24-25. So, again, we talk about Dawn Staley. I just listen to what Lisa Bluter said about Dawn Staley. I think this is just a perfect way to put it, right? She talked about Dawn Staley, why she mattered. Dawn Staley is the leader of women's basketball right now. She is the person we are all looking up to. And so Dawn Staley spoke at length about Caitlin Clark. Staley is generous with her praise for everyone, not just for her South Carolina Gamecocks. There would have been a version of events where Staley could have been frustrated, because there has been so much of a focus, of course, on Iowa, on Caitlin Clark, on everything that has been happening with the Iowa Hawkeyes. And the truth of the matter is that in most years, South Carolina would have been the story. But I think this goes to the larger part. This is what we're talking about here in the world of women's basketball. And it's simply that there is no one story anymore. It's not just Caitlin. It's not just Paige. It's not Caitlin or Paige. It's not just South Carolina or Iowa or just UConn. This is an absolutely incredible depth of talent that we are seeing in the game of women's basketball right now. And ultimately, this entire sport is going to have to figure out how to catch up to Dawn Staley. You can go back and say, what are your comparisons? What are your comparisons? Well, in 2016, UConn won its 4th national title with Breanna Stewart and Mariah Jefferson and Morgan Tuck. And those teams had incredible future WNBA talent. By the way, when we look back in 10 years on South Carolina, same thing. We're going to say, oh, they had 7, 8 WNBA players up and down the roster. But you go back and look and you just say, Nafisa Collier and Gabby Williams, and it just goes on with the talent that you had there. But that team ultimately was not then able to go back and win the national championship the following year. There was turnover. Stewie goes to the WNBA. Mariah Jefferson, Morgan Tuck. That was 1, 2, 3 in the 2016 WNBA draft. What is the net result? The net result is a Final Four appearance, yes, but a loss, as we doubtlessly remember, to Mississippi State in the 2017 national semifinals. Well, this South Carolina team, despite the losses they had, including Aaliyah Boston, who we're going to be seeing very shortly, catching an unending number of pick and roll opportunities from Caitlin Clark with the Indiana Fever. And they went out and they won. They won it all. They were, if you go by the numbers, they were better offensively in terms of points per possession, 114.9 to 114. Their defense got better. Their net rating was right there, slightly close, but right there. They just did it all. And so this is the program. This is the standard. It is an incredible thing to see right now. I go back and I think about it, and the places I'm looking, as much as UConn, are Delta State and Immaculata. These are programs that predate the NCAA. That's what we're talking about. That's the history that we are looking at. So to Dawn Staley, to South Carolina, it is a program and a level. And I remember asking Dawn about this. Did you ever expect to get to this point? And how she put it, this was before the Final Four began. We don't expect it, but it's what we are aiming for. You bet against Dawn Staley in any capacity at your peril. Dawn Staley today and once again, and not for the last time in all likelihood, is a champion. So back in segment 2, we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark, because what Caitlin Clark did, despite not winning a championship, is something that will never, ever be forgotten. So back with that in just a minute in segment 2. I'm Howard Megdal, and you're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Prize Picks. Now look, March may be over, but the biggest moments in college basketball tip off during the month of April. We just saw them after all. So you can be a part of the action on Prize Picks. There was women's college basketball and now men's basketball as well. You can also get in on the NBA playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. $10 can become $1,000 with basketball, hockey, college basketball entries today, all on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Back in segment 2, you can see a very celebratory arena here at Rocket Mortgage in Cleveland. I'm Howard Megdal, back with you, talking about Caitlin Clark. And so Caitlin Clark came out and scored 18 points in her first quarter against South Carolina. Dawn Staley's defense made things very hard from there. She still finished with 30. She had 8 rebounds to lead Iowa in that as well. Another 5 assists. What Caitlin Clark did is hard to measure. And, I was talking to a colleague of mine about this. There are several things, right? Oh, she didn't win a national championship. The idea of using that against her when you talk about her in the greatest of all time, I think is asking too much. Ultimately, championships are not won by individuals, as South Carolina proved yet again tonight. Ultimately, championships are won by teams. Caitlin Clark had some talent on her. She was not alone, but Caitlin Clark did not have the number of players around her that, say, Breanna Stewart did when Breanna Stewart won 4 in 4 years with UConn. Did not have a Mariah Jefferson, did not have a Morgan Tuck or an Afisa Collier or a Gabby Williams or a Kia Nurse. We can go on and on and on. Kate Martin is a great college player who will be talked about for a long time to come. I expect to cover Kate Martin as a coach someday, frankly. Hannah Stuelke, very impressive as a young sophomore, asked to convert from center to power forward in season, from power forward to center in season, and did an incredible job of it. But Caitlin Clark elevated her teams to back-to-back national title games, going to be incredible. And again, in just a true sign of what this game is providing all of us right now, Aaliyah Boston is a generational talent. I'm not sure we heard about Aaliyah Boston the same way we heard about Caitlin Clark for reasons that could take a very long time for us to get into. But guess what? It's not either or. You want to go see Aaliyah Boston play and you want to go see Caitlin Clark play starting next month, you're going to go do it in the same place. You're going to go see the Indiana Fever play and get the opportunity to see them together. So the idea that we're about to see Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark team up is remarkable. The idea that we are about to see Aaliyah Boston and Nalissa Smith pick and roll with Caitlin Clark, who just put up an assist percentage north of 50%, which is territory we simply haven't seen from very many people, certainly not from somebody who scored at the level of Caitlin Clark, is significant. But I want to go into something that I asked Lisa about, and this goes back to something really basic. I watched Caitlin Clark as a freshman. I remember hearing about her when she was in high school. This is somebody who we need to get eyes on. And all right, I want to watch Caitlin Clark on TV. Well, She wasn't on TV. She wasn't on ESPN or ABC or Fox or even ESPN2 or ESPN News or ESPNU or even the Big Ten Network in her non-conference games. She was on BTN Plus, streaming only, and I watched her through a Roku and saw that I was seeing something that I hadn't seen before. And yeah, I already heard it. I already saw it. And I've been in this business too long. This idea that, yeah, these ratings are huge. Oh, well, it's Caitlin Clark alone. That is the reason for that. I remember the 2015 U.S. Women's National Team in soccer winning the World Cup, and we saw audiences like we'd never seen before because Fox put their muscle behind it, because Fox Sports needed to prove what they could do to promote a World Cup and made it the Women's World Cup just because it happened to be first after they had themselves the World Cup contract. And they got 26.2 million people watching the World Cup final, yes, but they got almost 1 million people watching Brazil versus China on a Tuesday morning. Because when you promote women's sports and you make it available, people want to watch it. Everybody wanted to watch it. I'm going to throw it out there here. I'm going to put this number out there. My prediction for how many people watched this final game. I'm going to say 25.1 million. That's where I think that number's going to check in. 25.1 million, because it resonated in ways that we have not seen before. But it resonated because people could see it. And that U.S. Women's National Team, I had people tell me with a straight face, oh, people loved watching that team, but they weren't going to watch NWSL. And it took another 5, 6, 7 years before National Women's Soccer League got the kind of audience and, more to the point, contract they deserved. Same players, different shirt. People wanted to watch. People wanted to watch. And so I also just want to take it through the idea of who wanted to watch. Everybody wanted to watch. So I am joined by, as we try to understand America's youth, I am an old, but I am joined by Juliet Megdal, who covered this all weekend here, helped us over at the Next. And again, Juliet, as somebody who's a lifelong, let's say, lover of women's basketball, what was different when you were in school, before we pulled you out of school to cover the Final Four? What was different in the conversation about women's basketball in your school?
Well, I mean, the boys who usually say, what is women's basketball when I talk about it, they were talking about Caitlin Clark and what a great game she had at the game last night. Mm-hmm. And they were just saying women's basketball is amazing technically in different words, mm-hmm. when they're usually saying what is women's basketball. And I really, as a lover, like you said, a lover of women's basketball, that was just, it felt lightening, because as someone who wants to promote this amazing sport, like hearing people get the message, that just really warmed my heart.
When you go back to school next week and people are talking about Caitlin Clark, do you feel like there's an opportunity now to say, hey, if you're interested in watching her, there's a league called the WNBA that you get a chance to do so? And do you think they'll be receptive to that message?
I think, yes, definitely. I think they will be more interested, like they would be like, what's the WNBA? Explain that. Mm-hmm. Now, because they know about Caitlin Clark and what a legend she is, they'll be like, yeah, I'll watch that.
Bottom line, and Juliet Megdal, thank you so much for being part of this show. The bottom line, and I will just say this before we get into break, is when we talk about Caitlin Clark and her ultimate legacy, we're not going to know that yet. We see what these numbers are going to be out of the women's final tomorrow, but the ultimate legacy is how many people you talk to and everyone else in America talk to, and Caitlin Clark's moment talk to, what it ultimately means. So Juliet, thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work over at the Next this weekend as well. Back in segment 3, talking about what's the future for Iowa and South Carolina right after this. But first, I want to talk to you about LinkedIn Jobs. And no, not everyone can hire from within their own house like I was able to do, to get the people who are best able to do the work. And when you can't do that, when you have to go beyond your own immediate family, that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. It's not just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. By the way, this small business included. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LOCKEDONNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back to your final segment for Locked On Women's Basketball, talking to you guys about what does the future hold. And so we've talked a little bit about the fact that everyone except for Camila Cardozo is coming back for South Carolina. It's just almost impossible to imagine that this team will be better next year. But Joyce Edwards is coming to South Carolina next year. Joyce Edwards, the number 2 player in the country, out of Camden High School, right in South Carolina. Madison McDaniel, 5'9" guard, out of Bishop McNamara in Maryland, is coming to South Carolina. They're ultimately going to be so talented. And again, not just Dawn, and Dawn's so clear about this, but Juliet Law and Lisa Boyer, and it goes on and on. This incredible staff that Dawn Staley has, they turn freshmen into productive players. You don't have to wait. They're just setting the standard. They're just setting the standard. And I could not be more impressed with what Dawn Staley has done. I could not be more impressed with who Dawn Staley is. And so seeing that happen means a great deal. When you talk about Iowa as well, Iowa is losing Caitlin Clark. They're losing Kate Martin. They're losing a lot of talent from this team. Hannah Stuelke comes back. She's going to be a junior next year. You look at a team that has recruits coming in as well. They're going to be real young, is how Lisa put it, but at the same time, they have an opportunity. And so I just want to end, if I can, if she is willing to join on the podcast. We got Juliet's perspective, somebody who is new to this space, especially to the media space. I also am privileged to work with somebody who was recognized as a Hall of Famer by the U.S. Basketball Writers Association of America just this week. Wrote on Caitlin Clark here today, is at the Next. If she'll join, you join me right over my shoulder. Join me right over my shoulder. My friend, America's friend, Michelle Smith. And Michelle joins us to talk about what this all means to her. So, Michelle, you've been at this for quite a while. You covered Stanford when they won their first national championship. Is that correct?
Actually, not quite.
Okay.
But I came in that run of Stanford Final Fours. I just want to say, you said Juliet was new to the game. I was waiting for you to say I was old to the game. But then
Certainly
I knew you
not.
wouldn't do that to me.
I would never do that to you, and nor is it true. You are classic.
Thank you. I am classic. That's for sure. I had a couple of moments where I had a little dust in my eye at a couple of points today. The sound in this building was incredible. It was so loud. I don't know that I'll hear for 3 days after this properly. But it was the passion in this place, and it was both sides. And I don't know that anybody left unhappy. I'm not going to say that Iowa fans are super excited about the outcome, but South Carolina won that game. There were no controversial calls at the end. There were no offensive fouls. It was clear that South Carolina, in a couple of different ways, and I know you've probably already talked about some of this, but the bench scoring 36-0, plus 22 in rebounding, their depth, their length, Iowa just wasn't. And Caitlin said the same thing in her press conference. They're really, really good, and it was, you were going to have to play a pretty perfect game to beat them, and Iowa didn't quite do that. But I don't think anybody walked out of this building sad. And if anybody walked out of here, I think it's pretty excited about what comes next. And that's, I don't know. I've been to 18 Final Fours, and I haven't walked out of the building feeling quite like this before.
So that's my question, and you largely answered it, but I guess there's this other question, and maybe we can't answer it yet, but it just feels like there's no going back. You can't, after this team, this tournament gets this kind of attention and gets the type of response for it. How do you go back just to whip around coverage? You're never going to go back to that, right? Like, how do you go back to saying, we're going to bundle it with, 39 other sports the next time? We talked to Charlie Baker of the NCAA, who was still standing by, hey, 65 million is pretty good. And it is pretty good, right? But it's not based on the kind of numbers we just saw. It has to go forward from here, doesn't it?
You've changed expectations.
Right.
In every way. You've changed expectations about how many people will watch. You've changed expectations about how many people will show up. And not just, this game sells out every year. So this isn't about whether or not this arena and this venue gets sold out. It's about the attendance that you got at the regional sites. It's about the attendance and the enthusiasm in the first and second round. It's about, and a story that's going to come out in the next couple of days, the eventizing around this event. And companies corporate sponsors and things, finding opportunities to create communal experiences at this event, which raise the level. Things that we've been doing at, the men's Final Four and the Super Bowl forever is creating events where you don't even have to have a ticket to this game to be able to participate in the excitement of this game. The expectations are absolutely changed now. And I don't think that, the powers that be in the women's game, that are not sitting around some round table, with like special hats or anything. But I just don't think that, that players, teams, coaches should expect to be undersold, undervalued, underinvested anymore. Because look at it. It's shown that it can do this. The other thing I will say, though, and I'm not going to put a wet blanket on all of this, but I really wonder how much NIL is going to dampen the enthusiasm of fans who love their teams, who love individual players, and then maybe watch those players skitter off after 2 years or make a change or whatever. I mean, not NIL, transfer portal. Sorry, long day.
Right.
Hi, sorry.
It's all good.
But, I just really wonder what the impact of the transfer portal is going to be on fandom.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating because there are a lot of people in the men's game who have talked about the one and done ultimately being problematic from a fandom perspective. I will also say that, and this is the thing I would be watching for as well, is when with the new CBA is almost certainly going to come a steep jump in player salaries in the WNBA. When that happens, do we see somebody challenge the age 22 or 4 completed years of college rule in the current rules, keeping people in college and playing for 4 years often at the same school?
I think there's no question that's true, because I think part of that rule was in place to protect the college game, protect the product that, they wanted. They want 4-year players. They want Caitlin Clark coming into the league after 4 years of fandom with Iowa and bringing those folks with her. They want Cameron Brake coming in after 4 years at Stanford. They want that, but somebody's going to challenge that. And, and we're not going to be in that space anymore. We're going to have Haley Van Lith at her third school in, 3 years. We're going to have, transfer portal changes a lot of things. I secretly hope that they put some parameters on it that make it a little bit less wild west. Yeah. But I also understand that players deserve the same freedom that coaches do.
They do. It's a challenging thing. Sometimes progress brings with it challenges that go along with it. It's undeniably progress. And that is the most beautiful part of all of this. So, like you said, sitting here feeling like this is different. This was just different. I'm gratified to hear that you felt the same way. And yes, you're right. Ultimately, Lisa and Caitlin, they were clearly sad, but they kind of threw up their hands, in the idea that, and so I'd like to finish off by just from Dawn Staley, and you go back and you look, and again, just I had these numbers in front of us where 35-2 and a national champion 2 years ago, undefeated regular season right in through the Final Four, now 38-0, and by most metrics were as good or better, despite losing Aaliyah Boston and a number of other players to the WNBA. Lisa talked about Dawn as the leader of women's basketball right now. Is the comparison places like Delta State and Immaculata? Don't we have to go back even further than maybe UConn and even back further than Tennessee, simply because she's doing it with differing personnel here?
She is, and it's an incredible coaching job. But the thing that she's doing that doesn't take me quite far that back is that she's relating and building relationships with the modern player.
Yeah.
She's building relationships with players who, by the way, could decide they want to go someplace else at the end of the season if they don't get enough PT playing time, or they don't, or they're not excited about it. I mean, she's rebuilding and building in the same way that coaches across the country are having to rebuild by recruiting their own players and also going and getting new ones, right?
Sure.
And she's doing it in this atmosphere that we're in, where everything's changed, and it's so impressive. I mean, Dawn is so impressive anyway, but she is a figure in this game that I think is just, she's a unique figure in this game and in this moment, because if she can continue to do this, if she can continue to, replace 5 starters and go unbeaten, if she can continue to, keep her players home and keep those relationships strong, this is, and pull a Tahina Pau from the transfer portal.
That's
right. Needs
right.
to fill a spot. Wow. I mean, then, the South Carolina's going to be in a good spot for a very long time.
Read about Tahina Pau and her journey by Michelle Smith over at thenetstoops.com. Read about Caitlin Clark and her journey by Michelle Smith over at thenetstoops.com. Read about the way the corporations are coming into women's basketball and creating these shared spaces this week at thenetstoops.com by Michelle Smith. Michelle, thank you for everything. I mean that in the largest possible sense. So until tomorrow, the great Missy Heydrich will be with you tomorrow. I will be with you this week. We will be with you like we always are, 6 days a week at Locked On Women's Basketball. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to thenetstoops.com. Make sure you do $9 a month, $72 a year. All the Michelle Smith goodness and all of us right into your inbox.
I'll be napping, by the way.
Until then, me too.
I'll be napping.
I'm first to the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then to a lot of sleeping. So until then, I'm Howard Megdal. Thank you all for being part of this journey with us. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. South Carolina is your national champs.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.